Review.com, your host today, Donnie Rightside. It is a football Friday. I would like to say, I'm based in the Northeast. I would like to say, that crispness in the air. We're ready for football season. We're about midway through. We're heading to the midway point, but it's about 75 degrees in the Northeast. I mean, if you're watching, the joke was on ESPN today where they're at State College up there in Pennsylvania. And usually, you're ready for that 55-degree weather, some wind blowing, people still out there wearing shorts. What is it with this global warming right now? But hey, we'll take it. If you're betting over under better, you're probably loving this because as long as that winter holds off or that Christmas of the fall holds off, you're probably going to be able to get some optimal conditions with passing and running and field goal kicking. So we'll have some fun with that. Big show tonight. Got Major League Baseball on tap tonight. The Yankees and the Houston Astros going to take center stage. We'll see if it'll be a closeout game for the New York Yankees after the LA Dodgers already closed out the Chicago Cubs, moving on towards the World Series. You got a nice slate of football games, 4 games on tonight, had a couple games last night. We might hit on a little bit of that, touch on that Thursday night football game last night in the NFL that went right down to the wire. But again, this show is a Football Friday. We're going to have a lot of fun doing that. About the halfway mark, as usual, on Friday, CG Technologies' Matt Holt's going to join us and let us know where the money's going, the big winners, the losers, where that money train is going, who we can fade, and maybe, pick on them a little bit there to see if the public can get some back here. I want to welcome into the show Friday's resident co-host here, Drew Martin. You can catch him on Twitter at Drew Martin Picks. Also see him around the SBR networks here throughout the day. He's always available doing marketology. You see him also hosting the Bet Buffet as well as the Roundtable and doing various other things. Drew, it's Football Friday, brother. Welcome into the show today, man.
Donnie, thanks for having me on, buddy. It's interesting hearing you talk about the weather up there and a change of weather. Down here in Costa Rica, it's 75 and sunny with a little clouds pretty much every single day. So I miss that kind of stuff every now and again.
Yeah, one of my favorite times of the year, like, if you guys see me, follow me on Twitter, I'm a big cigar guy. I like it when it turns, that 65 degrees at night. You can sit out there, what I like to call hoodie weather. We haven't even had that yet. It's still shorts and T-shirts and taking your kid to the bus stop, and you're just waiting for saying, like, am I ever going to need a hoodie or a coat anymore? But, I guess we'll take it as long as we can get it. It's better than 32 degrees, but I sort of like the fall. I like, the foliage changes. It just seems like we're going to go from straight up summer to winter here in the Northeast. Just kind of some interesting stuff. But I'm waiting for hoodie weather down here, Drew. I doubt it's hoodie weather down there, right?
At night it gets a little chilly. You were down here. It's the same weather that it was, for the IFBC. So maybe, midnight, you're out having a couple drinks, maybe wear a hoodie. Maybe kind of like San Diego weather, if you will. But, one thing with betting and all this weather change, being able to watch it, especially a little bit later when snow comes in and, a little wind up there in the Northeast, betting some of these totals under, getting on that early in the week before the odds makers can put a little money in your pocket.
Yeah, no, I've been looking out and trying to, change it up. And, that's a lot of things. Like if you have a 65, a 60, whatever, 2 passing teams, you look up, it's 22 mile an hour's wind and it's 44 degrees, then you might be taking it off a little bit. Everywhere I look now, like, hey, let me get a good start on this game or let me get a good start on another game. It's the same thing. You're going to get, optimal conditions here, especially in the Northeast and throughout the country. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on here, Drew. Why don't we get the show started off here? We do have a big Major League Baseball game that's going to take place this evening on the rotation, 9:13, 9:14, 8:08 Eastern time. It's going to be the first pitch. Severino on the mound versus Verlander. Both pitchers coming in pretty hot here. If we take a look at Pinnacle, they opened up at 131. Drew, Chris opened up at 125. Pinnacle now sits at 153. Chris at 150. Our good friends, I should say, at CG Technology sitting at 157. So you're going to get a nice dog here if you think that the New York Yankees, with what I think is their ace on the mound at this point in a closeout situation. But, hey, you can't leave Houston for dead. They didn't play that well in New York. Now it's going to come down to a Game 6 here, a must-win for the boys at home. Anything you're looking forward to on tonight in this game, Drew? Over-under also posted at 7.5 as well.
Yeah, with Severino on the hill, it kind of surprises me that money has come in on Houston, pushed up over minus 150 now at most shops. I kind of agree with you, with Severino on the hill, the ace there for the Yankees. I might take a shot there, although, not digging into MLB at this point in the year as much as I used to. So kind of pump the brakes as far as making any big bets in MLB. But I think I lean with you, Donnie, as far as it'd be the big underdog or pass.
Yeah, I took a little taste on the underdog last night with the Chicago Cubs. That didn't work out so well. If we're taking a look overall lineups here, You don't get that good, or should I say, is it doesn't get any better than these two lineups. You're looking for the Yankees here. You got Gardner, Judge, Gregorius, Sanchez, Bird, Castro, Hicks, Frazier, and Headley. And then Houston's going to counter with the usual suspects: Springer, Reddick, Altuve, Correa, Gurriel, Bregman, Gonzalez, Gaddis, and McCann. The one thing that's been really impressive that we've counted on all season long and is really coming to fruition here is that Yankees bullpen is straight up shut down. If you're a pitcher like Severino goes out there and give you 5-6 strong innings, that bullpen's going to come in and dominate. So if you're looking at something in this equation here that you're anticipating the Yankees getting the win, if this is going to be a close game, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, I'm going to be leaning all over the New York Yankees. When you watch throughout the baseball season, the Houston Astros, the one thing that was really impressive about them, Drew, is late in the game, that 6th, 7th, and 8th inning, their bats really come alive against what I like to say shiesty bullpens, like something like the Detroit Tigers would have or the Philadelphia Phillies would have. But the New York Yankees have bullet after bullet after bullet coming after you, and it's really shown up here in the playoffs, going down 0-2, heading back to the Bronx. Now Houston coming back to play on their home turf. They're down 3-2 in that, needing 2 straight wins. Pressure's on Houston here, Drew.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, you bring up a great point with the Yankees bullpen, man. I don't want to be betting against them. And it's interesting to pull up the first 5 line versus the full game line, and Houston's even higher on the first 5. So it looks like a 10-cent difference as far as if you're wanting to include that Yankee bullpen. So I think that going full game with the Yankees, just using that as far as full game versus first 5, would be going with the Yankees at the big plus price to get their bullpen involved.
No, you're right about that. I mean, taking a look, me and the big man talked about it on the right side of campus today, just going over and looking at this game. Like Verlander, he's been really good. And in the past, Verlander has seasons that he's been unbelievable Cy Young worthy. But sometimes you're just waiting for that game for Verlander just to go back to being Verlander. What I mean by that is that normal 4 1/3, 5 runs, 7 hits, something like that. I mean, but again, he's been really good. It's a playoff atmosphere. He's a veteran pitcher. He's not going to be shaken from this situation. We've seen Severino struggle here already in the postseason in the wild card matchup. I don't know if that's going to continue tonight, but just something out there. And again, I like to bet contrarian. I like to bet the dog play. I'll take a shot on the 135 here. I'm not going to lay a ton of money on that game, but I do like taking teams in situations where you have a good bullpen, good starting pitcher, good lineup. I'll lay it out there on the cards, and I'll take the plus money. If you were to bet this game, Drew, whether it be an over-under, the 7.5, or taking the favorite with Houston or the underdog and the Yankees, which way would you lean that maybe you can, give out there and see what's going to take place?
Yeah, I'd take a shot with the Yankees. Just like we were talking about, put their bullpen a big plus price. That's the way I would go.
No, you got it, man. Let's keep it moving here down the list. We would go over, NHL and NBA, but look, folks, I mean, there's a big NBA card tonight. I don't think, I like to, as Big Baller Brand would say, LeVar Ball, I like to stay in my lane here. So I know I get stuff all the day. Hey, Donnie, what do you think about the Orlando Magic, Brooklyn Nets game? And I'd say, good luck on it, was basically what my synopsis would be. You want to give out any NBA plays tonight, Drew, out there? Or are we going to stay in our lane and just pick on some football here tonight?
Donnie, I don't think you want to be betting my NBA recommendations, man, so I'll just leave it at that.
Although I always like to poke fun with the NBA because, and again, I know some people are watching there down at SBR. We need to get this NBA contest up and off the ground because all I want to do is to see if I can blindly pick against some people who really know what they're doing in the NBA because my old adage is I don't think there's very much money to be made in the NBA. There's too much variance. Players don't care. Throughout the regular season, it's almost like the All-Star game. Nobody plays until the last 2 minutes, typically from what I see. And again, I like to poke fun. I'm a Sixers fan. You know what I mean? I haven't had much to root for. Sixers going to play the Celtics tonight. I'll be tuned in for a little bit there watching that game. But overall betting, I would love to see us get that underway because I want to see if I can match up with people that know what they're doing when I'm just looking from the outside and maybe watching, Drew, honestly, 15 minutes of NBA basketball a week to see if we can get right and get after it. NHL action tonight. It is the closing line. There are some games tonight. I'm going to ask you again, Costa Rica is the bastion of NHL hockey down there. Any plays you want to give out, Drew, tonight in the NHL ice surface?
You know what? I guess I could backtrack on your NBA thing because a guy that I follow, respect his NBA, 7-14 under, so Minnesota, Utah under, which it's already gotten a little under money from 200 down to 198, but that's somebody that's had a long-term winning track record, so I would say that. But as far as the NHL, I'd say whatever Ian Cameron says, put a little coin on that.
Yeah, the Mr. Ice Guy, yeah, he comes on a Wednesday night, gives us a good hockey update there. I mean, he can go on and on. If we just set up a camera in his house where he could talk hockey, it probably would be sun up to sundown, which is great. The man's very passionate about the sport, respect it. He's Canadian. That's what they do up there. I mean, that is exactly what they do. But again, most people that tune in and watch the shows, they know, they've seen us, multiple times, hundreds of shows. I'm not going to give out any information if I don't feel it. Like if you're coming on today and say, Donnie, give me a breakdown of Pittsburgh and the Florida Panthers tonight, I'm going to say, you know what? I really don't understand anything about that game. Who's starting? I probably couldn't even name you more than 3 players out there. Maybe I should say I should name you 2 players outside of Sidney Crosby that I do know in that game. And that's what we like. You know what I mean? You come to SBR for information that can put you on the right side. And again, we're not going to be frauds here. I'm not going to step out and be like, man, I'm the best NHL guy they're out there. But when we get down on some football, some NFL football, some NCAA football, we can really get after it. And we have about 15, 20 minutes until CG Technologies' Matt Holt joins us here. So why don't we get into some college football? And from what I'm seeing right now already, Drew, I mean, I didn't have a play on this game, but Western Kentucky has already kicked off with Old Dominion. All I saw all day, some tweets coming back, sharp money coming in on Old Dominion. Actually, CG Technologies moved down to 6.5. Line opened up somewhere around 9.5 to 10 in this one. Old Dominion, I've been really low on them all year long. I don't understand. Jeff and I, again, talked about it today. Bobby Wilder's crew stepping in the right direction. They have a great fan base. They're building a new stadium, looking to get up there maybe in that, a great fertile recruiting ground there in that Old Dominion area in, Virginia, West Virginia, stealing some of those players out there off the East Coast. They can do it, and they've shown some signs in the past, but something is just a miss this year, not getting that good quarterback play. Last year, loved betting on Old Dominion there, Drew, with Washington at running back, Washington at quarterback running the read option, Cox and Lowry out of the backfield. They were a really potent bunch. This year, not so much. Western Kentucky got up to Schneid last week with a really nice win against a really poor football team. I didn't have much on this game, outside of just saying, I can't back Old Dominion here, Drew.
Donnie, I first got to give you props. Last year, you were the first to put me on to Washington, that quarterback, how athletic he was for ODU. I got a couple W's out of that, so thank you.
But if you remember last year, Drew, on that, getting back to that, he wasn't in there the whole season. He was like a wide receiver. They said, hey, he's got a live arm and can run read option. All of a sudden, they were an over machine. Good point, Drew.
Yeah. No, by the way, do you know if he made an NFL roster? Not as a quarterback, but just as an athlete.
So. Yeah. No. Yeah, I don't think he did that. He was always battling injuries, but when he was in the football game, that offense was cooking. So it was good stuff last year. They just haven't been able to recapture that this year, Drew. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, really. But I mean, in this game, I think this is a tough one. Somebody in the chat box was saying ODU, taking money or whatnot. But I haven't bet on ODU all year. Not interested in betting on them. Unfortunately, I haven't faded them either. But Western Kentucky on the other end, I mean, outside of that Charlotte game, which if you're putting a lot of stock into that, I'd tell you to pump the brakes. I mean, Charlotte is, if not the worst team in FBS, probably, definitely.
You're not feeling Hassan Klug over there, Drew? What's wrong with your boy Hassan Klug this year, man? I thought he was going to take that next step.
Dude, I thought it too. I took a loss on Charlotte, and sometimes in this business, as you know, you got to reevaluate and then just take a step back. So he wasn't the guy I thought he would be. I thought he'd be dual threat, throwing it around and stuff like he was the end of last year. They put together a couple wins, but I don't know. I noticed he wasn't stepping into his throws, and I just kind of backed away from that. But if you're putting too much into Western Kentucky coming off of that Charlotte win, yeah, I think Charlotte's one of the worst teams in FBS. And Western Kentucky, man, they've just been awful, Donnie. So I can see the money coming against them, but not on ODU, not without Washington at the quarterback position. I think they're really struggling in that route. So this was an easy pass for me. Just can leave it at that. And it's already started. It came off an hour before I thought it would. What's up with this, man?
Yeah, I wasn't keyed in on that game, wasn't going to bet the game. And as soon as we went live on the show, I see the ticker already counting down with 14:35 to go in the first quarter. So you're live and underway. I can't watch it on my monitors right now since I do have it blocked out. But yeah, it's 0-0 right now with about 10 minutes to go. We'll see what pans out in that game. Looks like the over-under, Drew, closed about 50-50.5, depending where you were shopping at there. But yeah, to me, it's the same way. I don't really like Western Kentucky, so to speak, but I can't back Old Dominion until they show me something out there. So not too much food for thought. Did you have any leanings or feelings on this game over-under-wise, or just, pretty much a stay-away game for you there?
Yeah, just pretty much a stay-away, man. I got, out of the 4 games tonight, this is one that I absolutely had no interest in betting on.
Gotcha. Next year up on the docket, let's go 309, 310. You got Marshall, Middle Tennessee State. Boy, I would really like to see if Stockstill was playing in this football game, would really give them a bump and an elevate. But again, getting a little bit healthier as the season goes on for Middle Tennessee State. You know, Richie James, Ty Lee coming back here. Now looks like they're both fully healthy there. When they were, 3-4 weeks out, you get one of them back, maybe the other one get a little bit banged up. If we're taking a look at this game here, Marshall off the win versus Old Dominion, who we just talked about here. Marshall spanks them 35-3. Previous before that really held down the Charlotte 49ers 14-3 in that football game. So 4 straight winners coming up versus Marshall. But if you take a look at Marshall overall, I mean, they battled NC State, took a loss 30-27. But, I mean, we're talking about wins over Kent State. I mean, one of the worst teams in college football. Cincinnati, who the hell knows what you get out of them each and every week? Looks like they're just getting browbeaten, albeit by, the USFs and the UCFs of the world. Then you're going to take a look at Charlotte, who you beat 14-3. Charlotte, I mean, I would like to see Kent State and Charlotte, battle to like a 2-0 victory over 48 minutes in that one, or 60 minutes, whatever it would be, overtime, 2 overtime, 3 overtime. I don't know if anybody could score in that game. And then they beat Old Dominion, who's been terrible as well, 35-3. So Marshall's record looking good at 5-1, but how suspect is that overall 5-1? If we're looking at Middle Tennessee State, as I said, getting a little bit healthier there. Beat Bowling Green back on the 23rd of September. Lost to Florida Atlantic on the road. Beat FIU. Then took a tough loss to UAB. Upstart UAB team already covered their season total for the season. So an interesting team there. They also have a interesting game on Saturday that they're actually favored by 7.5. So break up the UAB Blazers. But back to this game overall, looks like, we like to say sharp money, wise guy money coming in. But this line opened up at 3, 2.5. Now sitting at 1 at Chris, 1.5 at CG Technology. Bet online, 1.5. What are we looking at from your perspective here? If I'm a gambler in this situation, again, I don't like this game one way or another. It's hard to say you would lean towards Middle Tennessee State because with that line so low, Drew, you're expecting Middle Tennessee State to beat Marshall. The one thing you can say about Marshall is, maybe the competition wasn't that great, but Marshall's winning, and there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, they are. They've been a surprise team, no doubt about it. And you bring up the Charlotte game 14-3, and it's like, whoa, what the hell happened? I believe they either almost or right about doubled Charlotte in yardage. So as far as that score, I think it should have been a little bit more than it was. They went a little conservative there. And on MTSU's side, you bring up Stockstill not being in, which is a huge, obviously a huge thing against MTSU. Mm-hmm. But Donnie, one thing that I noticed that I think might have to do with a little bit of this line movement is the backup Ursa, or whatever his name is, starts with a U. He was throwing it around a little bit better the last couple games. I mean, granted, it was against FIU, and even in the UAB game, you could see him just kind of getting more comfortable in the offense, which it happens when the backup comes in when the starter goes down. Pretty much no first team reps or not much in practice, and then after a couple weeks, he looks a little better. So I think that's kind of happening here with MTSU. So look for them to move the ball around a little bit. And, the Marshall side, you're right. I mean, kind of calculating how good these wins are, it's kind of a tough handicap for me. And I think that this line is about right. I think that it should be a good game tonight. So I think the line is about where it is, about where it should be, in between Pick'em and 3. So I don't have a bet on the side, Donnie.
Yeah, Urzua's settling in there. The reason being that, Drew, is that, he's had Ty Lee's been there all 7 games, and now you get Richie James back, that other, potent combination, which you were waiting all season long. We joked about it all summer long. Hey, I can't wait for MTSU to get on the field. Stockstill to Ty Lee and Richie James, quarterback now starting to settle, and he's getting a little bit more weapons there. But I don't like the game per se either way in that one. Should be an interesting one. But the Middle Tennessee State's one of the teams I wanted to watch this year. Just a shame that Stockstill is going to be out. Next up on the card tonight here on the closing line, 311, 312, Air Force and Nevada. Line opened up at Pinnacle 5.5. Chris at 5.5. It's moved up a little bit here. Air Force showing -7 plus 101 at Pinnacle, -6.5, -115 at Chris, and -6.5 at CG Technologies. Went over this game a little bit earlier today. Hard to like Air Force in this type of role. If Air Force is getting 3.5, 4.5, 6.5, 7, whatever it is, I might want to look into it. Nevada, I'm not the highest on Nevada overall, but it's just about covering a number. That line was 7 a little bit earlier. Jeff and I talked about it Jeff, the big man on campus, talking about on the right side of campus, that we were leaning towards Nevada. Don't have a really great play on this, or a great feel. But the one thing I do know is I don't like Air Force laying that much points on the road. I just don't think they're battle tested enough. Not impressed with their defense. Nevada's getting it going a little bit there. And Nevada's not a very good football team to say they're going against, the old school, the Colin Kaepernick teams and the teams that were challenging Boise State for conference championships. But I'll lean on Nevada here. It looks like it's about still 6.5, 7 at Sportsbook. If you can get 7, maybe take a shot on the home dog here in Nevada.
Yeah, you like that? What about their defense, though, man? They've kind of been getting carved up. That doesn't worry you?
Yeah. It's a really good point you bring up there, Drew, because you're saying, I always like to use the term styles make fights. If you're looking at Air Force here, what do they want to do? They want to run triple option. They want to run the ball. Worthman's not the greatest passer. I mean, they're averaging 133 passing yards a game. Where you gash Nevada at is on the back end on their defensive backs. 326 yards passing per game is what they give up. But Air Force isn't that type of team that's going to say, hey, why don't we just go 5 wide and throw it all over the lot and try to, beat them that way. The one thing that Air Force doesn't do well either is stop the run. But then conversely, when you look at Nevada here, Drew, 128 yards a game. So it's not like they're completely chewing it up on the ground. So who's ever going to make that adjustment better? The one thing I do know is Air Force doesn't throw the football very well. So I don't think they're going to be able to abuse Nevada through the air like one would think. Nevada's run defense is okay. So that's the reason I would like to lean on that +7 in that spot there.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Air Force quarterback. I think that he's, quick and really carve up defenses. So matchup standpoint, I don't know if I love Nevada's defense to really step up here. But you got to hand it to Nevada. I mean, their wide receivers are making plays. Their quarterback, Ganji, he's a pretty good dual threat kid. I kind of thought Nevada would be better than they were coming into the season. Backed off, and then sure enough, of late, they roll off 2 ATS winners. And you got to tip your cap, man, going into Colorado State and pushing them to the brink against arguably the best Mountain West team there is. That's pretty impressive. That was just a week ago. You got a short week. You're the home team. But at the same time, it's a short week to prepare for that triple option. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword there as far as it becomes a little bit trickier of a handicap. I will say this, Donnie. As far as the side, I'm not too sure because I don't want to lay too much with Air Force like you touched on. But totals-wise, I could see some points, man. I could see the Air Force, their quarterback, their triple option, really carving up Nevada's defense. And Nevada, on the other hand, I think Ganji and the wide receivers are really coming together, moving the football. And against Air Force's defense, I could see both of these two teams getting up and over the total. We've seen the total come down a little bit. I think there might be a little value going up and over.
No, I could see it both ways. I don't have a clear read on this football game, but if I was just saying, you know what, Donnie, man, you got to put a play down here. I mean, you can't be, stubbing your toe anymore. I would lean on Nevada just getting the points here. And again, Nevada's not a very good football team. I don't know how good technically Air Force is. They did have that nice comeback against Navy and then ended up getting burned at the end. They didn't even show up when they went to New Mexico. So you get what you get with Air Force. I was actually on Air Force, which maybe I'm a little bit of a hater. Maybe I put on my hater hat because of the way they performed against San Diego State after the rainstorm when they were up 9-0 and cost me a little bit of chunk of change. So maybe I do have my haters ball hat here looking on Air Force. So we'll see what turns out tonight and see what happens. Last game of them on the record tonight, 3-13, 3-14, Colorado State, New Mexico. And this is why I love the closing line, Drew. We have a lot of movement in this game over the last couple hours. 7.5 7s might have been available there. Pinnacle now showing -9, -114 in the favor of Colorado State. Chris at 8.5, CG Technology 8.5, Bet Online at 9.5 also. So one would think that this game might be starting to push 9.5 or maybe even double digits. And I agree with it there. I think Colorado State overall is the better football team. If you look at New Mexico, I don't even know what they were doing against Fresno State. Fresno State's a decent football team. Not a bottom of the barrel, awful team. McMarion at quarterback. But 38-0, that's a straight up embarrassment, especially after, you have a bye week. So, I mean, you beat, let me get this straight, Drew. You're in New Mexico. You play Air Force at home. You waste them 56-38. And then you come back after a bye week fresh and ready to go and get trounced 38-0. A little bit banged up at the running back position. Colorado State, struggling with Nevada a little bit, 44-42. But before that, beating Utah State, beating Hawaii. Tough one with Alabama. I mean, anybody, if you hang within 18 points of Alabama, you should be getting a gold star as it is anyway. But I think Colorado State is overall the better team. A lot of line movement. Even as I'm looking right now, Chris just popped up a -10. So people are hitting that game hard. Maybe change the philosophy a little bit. Hey, if it's 9.5, 10 right now, I still like Colorado State. I'll go with Colorado State, even with that enormous line movement from about 7.5 to 8 to 10, as we're looking at it right now, Drew.
Yeah, I think Colorado State's the better team. I just kind of said that they were arguably the best in the conference, but man, I can't get a good read on New Mexico, and you got to give it to them. I mean, they do have an improved defense there, so I don't have a bet on this game as of right now. Home team, short week. Again, it's kind of a unique offense as far as Colorado State prepping for like option principles out of that New Mexico Lobo offense, but Colorado State's defense hasn't been all that. It has been kind of their Achilles heel. However, putting up a bunch of points, I'm not looking to go against Colorado State. At the same time, short week, going on the road and laying this number, I'm not interested in either. So I don't have a play on this one, Donnie.
No, yeah, I mean, it's 4 games, closing line. We go over them all just to see if we can pick and choose on those. I don't have a lot of money on these games. I might dabble a little bit later tonight, the 10-15 game Colorado State, but just interesting to see that line movement. Over under in this one, 60 points. The one thing, I mean, Colorado State's a good football team. I mean, they can throw it, they can pass. They can throw it, they can run it, they can play some good defense there. The one thing we know, New Mexico State, with that high-power triple option that Bob Davie likes to use, they typically can put up points. I have no idea what they were doing in their last game versus Fresno State, but they're going to get a pretty good defense here coming out with New Mexico's going to see a good defense in Colorado State. I would lean towards the 10 in that one, so we'll see what happens in that game. Got a couple minutes before we bring in the man, the myth, the legend, CG Technologies, Matt Holt here in just a few moments. Drew, we can go over a few more games. Do you have any games that you may be looking at on Saturday to pique your interest? Not so much even to maybe cap on, but maybe an interesting game that you caught your eye that you want to go over, or somebody else in the chat box wanted to go over something, Drew? The floor is yours as my guest tonight, Drew.
Hey, I appreciate that, Donnie. Mighty kind of you. What about 317, 318 Tulsa, Yukon, and also 323, 324 North Texas, FAU? I saw Lane Kiffin's putting he's activating one of their
Get the felons out there, but hey, Drew, I'm telling you right now, a good football team has enough guys on that roster that at any given moment can commit another felony. You have to have that crazy balance, and he's good with it. Best wide receiver, you're right, is coming back to FAU to play in this football game, Drew. So, yes, I agree with that there. You want to go over that game right there?
Yeah, I mean, does that actually change it? Does that change your opinion? Is this kid that good? I don't know much about him.
He was their leading. The good part is he was their leading receiver last year. So, obviously, the kid's got some talent. Now, the one thing that you usually hear is like saying, hey, he went in front of the board and he was finally reapproved. Even though the best part about that is Lane Kiffin is so cold-blooded down there at FAU that this guy's felony is still pending. And he's like, hey, innocent until proven guilty. So let's get back at it. The student government finally approved it. The one thing, though, Drew, he has been practicing all along, was eligible once the fall semester started. So he didn't get maybe that mid-August, football practice, coming into camp. But since game one, he's been playing. He's been practicing for a good 6-7 weeks out there for FAU. How much of a difference maker will he make? I'm not too sure. But overall, looking at FAU, I do like their offense. It's a great game. I mean, most people would just look over that. North Texas, never heard of them. FAU, who the hell is that? But when you look at it, you have the Mason Fine, Guyton, and you also have Wilson in the backfield. Then you look at FAU, who inserted Driscoll over Part, running back, now running more of a read option. They have 3 to 4 running backs that can really get after it. And we know Lane Kiffin recruited a lot of, quote-unquote athletes out there to see how they would mix and come together. It was a little bit tough on the season to start. But then again, you're asking them to play Navy opening night. Navy was ready to go. FAU didn't really know what they had. They got eviscerated on opening night. And then you're going to say, hey, Lane, it gets a lot easier here. Let's go to Wisconsin and see what we can do. They held their own somewhat there. Then they play a Buffalo team up in Buffalo, played them right down to the gun, ended up losing by 3 points in that one. But they've played some decent football since then. So is this going to be a really good football game? From your approach on this game, what are you looking at between FAU and North Texas here, Drew?
Yeah, I'd start off by saying it's a hell of a matchup, man. I mean, 2 good teams, and going back to like what you were talking about with the wide receiver and Lane Kiffin, I guess it's okay for him to play. Like, sure enough, you go through their schedule and you got, the out of conference, even the Buffalo game, Brent Stockstilis, MTSU team, ODU, like we touched on, they suck. And then sure enough, first conference test here with North Texas coming into town. Let's get them in, We had best team forward. North Texas, I think it's a tough spot. Coming off of UTSA, we know about that game. I mean, that throw at the end that Fine made was a pretty ridiculous throw, and a tough kid, good team. But we got FAU coming off the bye week at home. I mean, I think it sets up very nicely for the Owls. So as far as a side, it makes me look towards FAU, even though, If it was a neutral site, equal preparation time, I actually lean towards North Texas being the more talented and better team. But in this situation, I would look to kind of go on FAU. Maybe wait to. It's already moved from -6 to what, -3.5 right now. Would like to get that hook off of it if at all possible. Maybe sometime tonight, early tomorrow morning. But not sure that will happen, especially with the new news with more talent coming in at the wide receiver position. But I lean FAU here, Donnie, and also could see a lot of points in this one. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, the interesting part of that, the 66 is a little bit high. You might have a little bit of weather concerns in this game. I mean, always do in South Florida, but it is supposed to rain possibly a little bit there. The forecast was a little bit worse about a day or two ago. The 66 is kind of a tough threshold to meet. Both of these teams are very good on the ground. The one thing that you were watching last week, I watched the entire UTSA game versus North Texas. Fine was awesome in that football game, but that front seven from Texas San Antonio is really good, and they put a beat. I'm talking, he was limping the entire football game, and right down to that last pass he threw, he got crushed in the pocket. Now, the good part about it is, if you're looking to bet the North Texas side, is FAU can't come at you the way UTSA's front seven does. I mean, they literally have NFL talent out there trying to get after you, and they did. But showing Mason Fine in that game, you wonder how much they have left, because that's a grueling rivalry right there. They pull out the victory. Now they're going to head on the road. And we know FAU is a pretty good home team here. I mean, I'll take out the Navy game, put them in conference. They've had a couple really good games at home. The one thing that they can do, which is really interesting, I mean, look at the numbers that they rack up. I mean, FAU, you figure Lane Kiffin's coming into town. We're going to throw the ball all over the place. I mean, Bethune-Cookman, who's, again, not a good read on there, but 439 yards against anybody when you're not, Navy or Army is pretty impressive, or Air Force. 262 on the ground versus Buffalo. 252 on the ground versus Middle Tennessee State. 453 yards on the ground versus ODU. They have three really good backs. And again, I like to preface it by saying they took Parr out, who's more of a thrower early in the year, inserted Driscoll, who's a lot more up, read option. He can run the football. He can throw on the run. So an interesting game. But 66 points in this game, Drew, seems a little bit rich for me. But would I be absolutely stunned if they get there? No, because both of these teams, you have quarterbacks that can move on the ground and be elusive. You have two running backs. If you look at Singletary and Wilson, both guys can hit home runs on that. And you're going to have a fluid passing game with FAU already in Kiffin's offense. And Guyton might be the best wide receiver in that entire conference. So a good game matching up. Glad you picked that game, but we should have a lot of fun on that one there.
Yeah, man, and good point with the FAU defensive line. That is their weakness, and that's a tough weakness in today's college football. So North Texas, look for them, and Mason Fine in particular, to have a better game this week. I think that North Texas in particular will be able to throw the ball. But yeah, I also wanted to get your opinion on the Tulsa-UConn game, man. We see some money coming in on Connecticut, and I know you know a lot about kind of their offense in general. What's up with this? Why is I guess it's a fade on Tulsa, or do you think it's more of a buy on UConn?
I mean, I don't know what to expect out of Tulsa here. I mean, Tulsa's an interesting football team. When you looked at them from the past couple of years, I mean, throw it all over the place, don't play any defense. Now it's almost like a high-end, read option, run as fast as we can type of ball club. I'm not sold on either one of these teams playing defense here, but if you're looking to lay, more than a touchdown in this situation, I'm going to lean on getting the points. I don't have a great read overall, but, I mean, we've watched UConn play. You've also watched, Tulsa play. I've watched Tulsa get eviscerated by teams like Tulane. You've watched, UConn go out on the field and just get pummeled, on offense by guys like ECU. In these type of situations, in these type of games, Drew, just give me the points, and I'll flip that coin out there and try to lean on it. You know what I mean? From your angle, what would you anticipate, Tulsa, UConn, other than nobody's probably going to play any defense in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of fading Tulsa under the radar the last couple weeks. I just don't think they're very good. And sometimes, especially with these kind of mid-level programs, FBS-wise, I kind of think the name, like Tulsa, Arkansas State, but not in the same situation as Tulsa, kind of carries weight in the betting markets. And their quarterback play just – I don't think that kid's very good. The President kid, I know the backup comes in a little bit. I think he's a little bit better. But UConn, they look like they're coming into their own offensively. It looks that they're able to move the ball. I think they'll be able to move the ball against the Tulsa defense. And the other way around, I know UConn doesn't have much defensively, but I think Tulsa's really going to struggle. So I agree with you. I think if you got the 7, I think it's a great bet. But here at 4, I would lean to the dog just because of the lack of defense and put the points, especially at home, in your pocket. So that's how I would feel about it.
Hey, Drew, by the way, it's halftime right now. I don't know who the snack mom is for us today on the show, but I'm sure we can get some, gummy bears and some orange slices, some water to take a time out here. Because I'm going to bring on right now CG Technology, not Matt Holt, folks. We're going to have a second time appearance right now by CG Technology's Devin Brackett. Devin, welcome into the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Donnie. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Let's get right down to business last night. I know taking a look at the game last night in Thursday Night Football, very interesting game. Most people, from what you were seeing, on Twitter or just getting some feedback there, we all thought, the majority of people thought that Kansas City should have been the right play last night. Comes right down to the end. They have the cover in their back pocket, a couple huge third down conversions, a couple huge fourth down conversions coming to the game, and even some controversy heading down the stretch, 3 or 4 plays to end this game. When it was all said and done, a 1-point victory by the Oakland Raiders here and easily covering the over. From your side of the counter there, Devin, what did we look at last night? Winners and losers, what were they, buddy?
The way I like to see it, Donnie, was we got a nice 4-play break at the end there with all those penalties and giving the Raiders a chance to not only cover but win the game outright, to kill all those teasers and parlays. Ended up being a 5-figure win for the book. Pretty good day for us.
How about last night? Take a look. I know you guys obviously do a lot in baseball as well. The game last night easily, Kershaw, from what you were looking at, I took a little bit of slice on the underdog last night just to see it plus 146. Didn't really work out too well for me in that instance, but most people I know were betting Kershaw. Anytime you see Kershaw, less than or minus 250 or less, it seems like it is a bargain. He was fantastic last night. The Dodgers came to play right off the bat. Over under easily hits on the over. It was relatively low under at 7. From your side there, was the public, from what I assume, probably lining up on Kershaw last night? Or did you see some contrarian value and getting some contrarian wagers back here on the Chicago Cubs?
No, you hit it right on the head, Donnie. Kershaw's one of those guys that even if you don't watch baseball and you see his name with a line lower than 200, you go and, empty out your wallet on that bet. So, we lost some money on the Dodgers, not only with Kershaw, but just, being a Dodgers town. And, not the best day in terms of that. So the Dodgers winning was bad for us.
Last night you had a couple of college football games also, which, pushed it a little bit down the docket with the NFL and the, NBA taking such a prominent role here. Arkansas State, UL Lafayette, Houston, and Memphis played last night. Interesting game in Houston. Easily covers the over-under. Houston had a big lead in that one. Memphis comes and pulls in the total. From some of the numbers I was looking at, I know CG Technology closed at about -1 in that football game. So money, I guess, was coming back in on Memphis as you got closer to the game. Winners and losers in that game, because the total easily covered, which usually when you see a Memphis game and it's lined somewhere around 60, most people will be inclined to bet the over. What did you see from that football game last night there, Devin?
Yeah, surprisingly, we were in the black on that game with Memphis winning and covering. We had some sharp bets coming in late on Houston. I know the line did move, but right before the game started, hitting Houston, we ended up black, making some money on that game. Surprising, 17-0 at halftime, and then Memphis comes storming back to not only drive it to the over, but also cover and win.
Now, interesting there. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit tonight. I know we have 4 games coming up. First, let's talk about the baseball game tonight. You New York Yankees always attract the betting following, looking for a closeout game type of situation and getting plus money tonight versus the Houston Astros. What are you seeing today? Any sharp money coming in, thinking that Verlander's going to extend the series here? Or are you getting that New York money regardless of anything that's happening in this one, Devin?
Yeah, the Astros are also a public favorite. But right now we are seeing a lot of sharp money on the Astros to force a Game 7. So we will be Yankees fans tonight.
Yeah, that's interesting. Usually you're always rooting for the opposite of New York money. So we'll keep an eye on that situation. There are 4 football games on tonight, college football, Devin. I don't want to get into, go over each one of them to see what's happening. But from your end of the spectrum here, is one of these games going to be a decisive one for the book or maybe an over-under? What are we looking at tonight from these 4 football games here?
Yeah, like you were touching on, the CSU line move. We have seen in the past couple hours, CSU has become a huge liability for the book, driving that number all the way from 7 up to 10. So that CSU is going to be a huge liability, could end up swinging the day and even the week for us.
because it should be a good one there. Tomorrow, I mean, not the hugest Saturday, weekend of big, exciting games, but I know a lot of people are looking forward to the night game up here with Penn State and Michigan. Line was hovering all week around that 10 level, but we did see a buyback. If I'm looking right now, CG Technology, you're hanging a 43.5 as the total and a 9.5 here if we listed at Penn State still being the favorite. From my end of the spectrum here, it looks like you're getting some decent 50-50 type money action. I know this game is probably, it's a night game, 7:30, so obviously as the day builds, you're going to get much more games on there. Any sharp action, any public action on this game that we can take a look at here?
Yeah, actually, Donnie, the sharps and public are both on Michigan. Loving the 9.5 points with that. I know that the Michigan offense is inept, so that you would think you would get a lot more money on the Penn State, especially in Happy Valley. But right now, we're seeing all the money going on Michigan. I would expect that line to move.
Pretty interesting there. Yeah, every once in a while we'll get 4 to 5 big-time games there, all prime time. But it looks like, one of those weeks in college football that has taken off a little bit. So we'll shift the focus a little bit here, Devin, to Sunday and the NFL card. A lot of interesting things. Deshaun Kaiser is going to come back to be the starter with Cleveland. Minnesota's still going to go with Case Keenum while Sam Bradford is out. Winston a little bit banged up for Tampa Bay. Looks like he's going to get the start. And the one key game here, actually 2 games I want to ask you about, Devin. One is 465, 466 on Sunday, a 1 o'clock start. It's going to be New Orleans and Green Bay. The reason I asked this here is, you had New Orleans open up somewhere in that 3.5 to 5.5 range. You also I saw early in the week a little bit around that 6, but it looks like that buyback coming in here on Green Bay. It's down to about 4.5. Let me see. Looks like CG Technology's hanging a 4.5 and a 47 in that game. What were you seeing throughout the week in this one? Is it a heavy betting handle, or maybe some people taking a wait and see approach? What are we looking at there?
Well, if there was any question of who the most valuable player in the NFL was, that question has been answered. Our look-ahead line for Green Bay was -6 with Aaron Rodgers playing. It opened up for us at 3.5, a 9.5 point swing with Aaron Rodgers out. Like you said, that did move up to 6, and then the Sharps ate that number up and then back down to 4.5. So yeah, we're seeing it's actually going to be about even money on that on both sides.
Interesting. And the other one, another interesting one, 471, 472, Devin. It's going to be an East Coast game, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. And that's going to be Seattle and the New York Giants. Line opens up here. If I'm looking at some other outlets, 8 and 7, and it's starting to get that peel back. I even saw some numbers as low as 3.5 that were being hung out there. I see CG Technology sitting at -4 and a 40 in this game. I mean, you saw the New York Giants pull off one of the bigger upsets in the NFL just from optics there alone. Nobody at wide receiver. Denver's a much better football team. Their season's over at 0-5. They go in there and pull a double-digit upset, not only covering the spread, but winning outright. Now they're coming back home here, getting a little bit respect here from what I see from the odds makers, coming back and pulling back to around a 4, 3.5, depending where you're shopping. What are we seeing in this game? Did Sharps take that game right off the bat once they saw the Giants? Because I know some outlets opened up at 7, now sitting in that 4, 3.5 range. What did you look, or what did you take some action on this game here, Devin?
Yeah, we actually opened up that line at 7.5, and the Sharps did eat that up. I think the public also liking that, just like you said, based off of last week. They see how well they played against the Broncos. And look, the Seahawks offensive line is not good. So I can see why people would want to take the 7.5 at that point with that defensive pressure. And also with Sterling Shepard and Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie coming back, they should be a much better team. We actually do have a liability on the Giants, so we'll be rooting for the Seahawks.
You got it. Monday Night Football here before I let you go in the Northeast. I will be at the football game. Big Man on Campus will be at the football game. That's Washington and Philadelphia, matchup between Kirk Cousins and Carson Wentz in this one. Over-under sitting at 49. Looks like CG Technology's at -4.5. Ticket split in this one. One last game I want to go over with you is this game. What are we looking at from your side? Any sharp action coming in? People leaning on the over-under, the total, the side. What are we looking at here?
As you know, Washington is banged up, so kind of driving that lineup might be a little bit inflated. We are seeing some sharp action on the Washington Redskins. These, like you said, these two teams do generally play a close game, so taking the 4.5, maybe not a bad idea. But we will be rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles to take one at home.
No, I appreciate it. Hey, and by the way, Friday's here coming on, pinch hitting again for Matt Holt, doing a good job giving us the information in here. Thank you so much for your time there, Devin. Really appreciate it. CG Technology's always been really kind to us here on the closing line, so appreciate your time. Good luck this weekend. And hey, man, look, just don't take it out too much on the public here. Let them get a couple wins in here so they'll keep coming back to you there.
Hey, we love the public to win every once in a while. You got to let them win. Thanks again for having me, Donnie. Best of luck to you.
Fantastic, buddy. Thanks again. Once again, folks, Devin Brackett there from CG Technologies, always willing to fill in there, does a great job here on the show. And as I said again, CG Technology is a great outlet there, always treat us well. Give us the information of where that money's coming and going there. Look for them on the closing line on Mondays and Fridays, letting you know where that money was on the weekend, where the money's heading there on the next weekend there on Friday show. So a lot of fun. And I know Drew is back. Maybe had a little bit of orange slices back over there. Maybe got some Gatorade in there. How's it going over there, Drew? We all right over there?
Donnie, yeah, man. Reminds me of 10-year-old flag football days. Get the orange slices out from the team mom. But I actually couldn't hear his responses, so wish I could comment, man, but I can't.
Yeah, he was killing you, man. I'm glad you didn't, because he was really beating you up pretty good, saying, I heard a little bit of the show. I don't have any idea what Drew was talking about, so just fade Drew. So it's actually good you didn't hear that, Drew.
Dude, fade Drew. What I said, yeah, I don't even know, but I couldn't hear him, man. So hopefully it was a good segment.
No, it was pretty fun. They always treat us pretty good there over at CG Technologies. Drew, why don't we pick on a couple NFL games? I know one near and dear to your heart here, Drew, and that's 459-460 the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. What a quarterback battle here with McCown versus Jay Cutler. Opening lines in the situation, Pinnacle opened up at 4. Chris opened up at 3.5. Now you're seeing pretty much 3 across the board. Bet online showing a -305, -103, but prevailing line in this one, 3. What are we looking at here with Jay Cutler fresh off going into Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, coming up with the win, 17-0. I was on the halftime show, the closing line with Gabe on Sunday. I'm like, man, Jay Cutler ain't even going to make it out of the second half. They give him the second half. They end up winning the football game. A rejuvenated Jay Cutler here, or just a mirage, Drew? What do we think?
Man, it's tough to bet on Jay Cutler, huh? I mean, even if he did look good, it's just I don't think his motivation is in it. And one thing that I took away from reading Point Blank, Dave Malinsky's piece, is he brought in the line movement from the last time they played up in New York, and I believe the line was like 5.5 or 6, and now it's moved to Miami -3.5, that being at home, which is a pretty big line movement for the NFL. That doesn't happen that much in just, a few weeks. Also considering the last time these guys played, remember, Miami had to deal with Hurricane Irma, and then right after New York, fly to London. So having to do with all of that, he made a great point to there might be line value on the Dolphins, even though last time out against the Jets, they didn't look that good. It is the NFL in taking that, value in the line movement. I thought that he made a great argument for betting on the Miami Dolphins. That's on SBR Picks right now on the NFL tab. So just wanted to bring that up as far as might be value on the Dolphins, Donnie.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't have any problem with that because I like the New York Jets in certain environments here still early in the season. They played, and some would say if you watch that game versus New England, they should have beat New England straight up. Got a couple bad calls. I know on the Austin Seferius-Jenkins, they called him, said he fumbled on the goal line, which was a ridiculous call. But they had a 14-0 lead in that game. Nobody to fault but themselves, but they played good in that one. But again, that's at home. They tend to play well at home. Miami was a train wreck in the game versus the Jets. The Jets also beat Jacksonville at home, but going on the road, a little bit different here. It's hard to back Jay Cutler. I'm not going to lie. I mean, even when you look at the mannerisms out there and the plays that he comes up, this coming from a guy who bet the Miami Dolphins to beat the Tennessee Titans, and they did handle that. Not a huge check mark for Jay Cutler, so to speak, or in that game that you figured that he played well or passed the test. I thought he was bad there. I didn't get a chance to watch the overall game or every snap in that Atlanta game, but a nice comeback altogether. But yeah, you know what? I would be leaning towards the Miami Dolphins in the situation, just seeing what's going to take place there. Let's go. Anything else I'm checking in the chat box here to see if they won anything in the NFL. Any other games, Drew, that you want to hit in the NFL, or is it just, we'll see what's what here?
Some guys were talking about Carolina, Chicago, and what from the preseason, Newton not having a full offseason and then coming on, I guess, of later, at least as a couple weeks ago. Do you think that's a good betting angle there, betting on Carolina?
I do. Let me just take a quick second here in the chat box. Jason Enright says, NBA picks, guys. Pistons 6.5. Hell, I love the Pistons 6.5. All right, let's get back to the Chicago Bears game here. A really interesting game because early in the week, if I'm looking at this football game, and I've said it many times, I need Luke Kuechly in my lineup for the Carolina Panthers to feel really confident and really be able to shut down the Bears. I don't think the Bears have a very good offense, so the more ammunition you have on defense, the better. And Luke Kuechly is one of those I want to say you put it this way. I can't come up with the word here, live on the air. But he's one of those players you have to have in your lineup. When he's in the lineup, that team is dominant on defense. When he's out of the lineup, not so much of a good defense. Even though the front seven can bring some problems for Chicago, he's not going to play in this football game. And I didn't think they would. Concussion histories on the past. They're going to take it a lot slower. Carolina's a good football team. You don't want him playing this game, risk of losing him for the season with yet another concussion. So I agree on that. But I really can't back it up and take Carolina here on the road. Chicago does play well at home. There's no doubt about that. I mean, look at the first game of the season, Atlanta. They actually should have beat Atlanta. They beat Pittsburgh, and they gave Minnesota all they could handle in the last game, and actually got the cover in that one and getting 3 points again here. So if you're asking me to take this game right now, I don't really know if I like it overall. But without Kuechly in that lineup and a banged up Kelvin Benjamin, he is supposed to play in this football game. I might be leaning Bears in this one, Drew. How about you?
I guess I would surface level. I'd take the other side. I mean, I know Chicago plays pretty good defense at home, but like you were touching on the linebacker situation, I would lean toward Carolina -3, but that's just a lean, Donnie. Nothing serious with that one, man.
Yeah, I don't see a big scoring option either. I mean, we're looking at over-under, opened up at Pinnacle 41.5. Chris opened up at 41, now sitting about 40.5, 41 still at sportsbook.com. I can't see this game being a track meet, but again, I mean, everybody's going to quote me on the same thing I say time and time again. Unless it's, 55 points, NFL games overall, they're just not built for the under. The same thing in college football. When you see those lines pop up where it's not, outrageous, like 74.5, all hell breaks loose, it seems like. And if you watched last night, flags just fly out of nowhere. 45-yard plays, you're down 3 points, just sit back in the pocket, launch a bomb. You get a 50-yard flag. Next, you're first and goal at the 5-yard line. So it's hard for me to advocate taking a lot of unders, especially when they're sitting at 40.5. I did steal one on Sunday Night Football when the line was 37.5 at closing, and that one needed a ton of push to just stay under that line. So looking at that, if I'm saying, as a football purist and I see the way the game's going to play out, I think it's going to be lower scoring. But in the NFL, again, man, those flags fly out there. Again, 40.5, just not built for the under. You're more likely to get lucky hitting the under than you would just having a strong play saying, oh, man, what a clean football game at 24-10. And even at that point, one more touchdown would push it over the end. So it should be a lot of fun in the NFL this weekend. A lot of moving parts. That line finally came out, Drew, 461, 462. Tampa Bay and Buffalo looks like it's sitting at -3, -105 at BetOnline. That's an interesting game. Because without Jameis Winston in the lineup last week, didn't seem like Tampa Bay's offense, Drew, missed any beat in that one. The one question I have is Buffalo going to be able to, match up and supply the mismatch that most teams have with Tampa Bay. You can throw all over their secondary, but, banged up Jordan Matthews at wide receiver, no Charles Clay. Do they have enough to exploit that? Because there is some talent on that front seven from Tampa Bay overall, but we know they're vulnerable in the back end. I don't know if the Buffalo Bills are going to be able to exploit that. Any thoughts there? I mean, coming down from one of those Florida teams, Jameis Winston goes to a full practice here on a Friday, so he is going to start the game. But I wonder how much that's going to hamper him, Drew, in that football game.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, they didn't miss a beat putting up 30-plus points, but going up against Buffalo, but the Bills are off of a bye week too, so extra time to prepare for that offense. That makes me lean towards the home team in this one, especially you can get it -3 at reduced juice right now at the Greek. So the home team field goal, that's the way I would go.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would lean on that as well. One last game before we get out of here, we'll take a look at here. 467, 468, Arizona and the LA Rams. Not in LA, not in Arizona. We're going to go overseas here and play that football game. That game's actually going to kick off at 1 o'clock, so no 9 a.m. starts here, but it is going to be a night game out there over in, I believe, was it Great Britain, I guess, or London, wherever they're playing that football game at. But if we take a look at the overall line here, opened up at 3.5, depending on where you're shopping, still sitting at about that range. Over-under in this one, opened up at 47.5 at Chris, now bet down to 45. The interesting thing about this, Drew, is this is not in a dome stadium. It's going to be outdoors. Maybe you get that mist, and you know, they're used to playing soccer and rugby on those football fields, so maybe the actual, turf itself not set up, slipping and sliding out there. If this game was in LA or Arizona, I actually would lean towards taking the over. I don't really have a play in this one. I actually would lean on taking the points right now with Arizona, just because playing in that unknown environment, both teams going overseas, and you sort of see what you get out there. I've liked the way the Rams have played football last week. Arizona did play a good football game. Comebacks are going to come back. there with Tampa Bay, but I think Arizona clearly dominated that game. Don't really know what to expect from that end of it, so I don't have a great feel. But if you ask me today to take this football game, probably would lean on Arizona. If you're getting 3.5, all the better there. But that over-under, typically, if that was played in the States, I would lean towards over in that environment.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, watch out for weather. You know, when you head to England, especially later in the day, it could just rain a lot. But also, whenever a situation travel like this happens, Donnie, I'd look to see more of like how the teams are traveling. And looking at LA, they went to Jacksonville, so I'm guessing they didn't go back home and then to the London area, wherever this game is. Do you know if they just went right from Jacksonville?
No, but normally you're right. That's a good point on that. Normally NFL teams, pre-pack for that, so to speak. I remember instances all throughout back in January 2003 when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC title game. There was no bye before the Super Bowl that week. So after the game, Tampa Bay literally flew into Philadelphia and just flew right out to San Diego to play the Super Bowl. So same type of impact in this one. Yeah. So no, they definitely flew out there. It would be pretty stupid to me, Drew, if they flew over to Jacksonville, flew back, and then flew back again. That would just be if that was actually the case, I would automatically bet Arizona because that's just a dumb franchise right there.
Yeah, and I mean, you can still find 3.5s out there at Pinnacle and Greek. So I'm with you. I would take the points in this one.
King Kunowski livestream says, how accurate are these picks? We are 100% documented, 100% winners since SBR back in 1999 became a company. Check it out for yourself. It's all documented out there. Everything we do is on tape, never, ever lost out there. So, Drew, it's Friday, happy hour. You're 2 hours behind us there. It's coming up right across 5 o'clock. You going across the street to the animal safari, you hitting the local bar. What are we doing down there in Costa Rica tonight?
Tonight, man, I'm going to be watching some college football here in the office, and then probably about halftime of the late games, I'll get out, get some dinner, go to I don't know if I'm going to go to the American-style sports bar or go to the Costa Rican local place, which I like to go to, get some Imperials for $2. Hey guys, head on down to Costa Rica, man. I need some American friends that talk some college football, some NFL, but definitely get into a little something before tomorrow, huckering in and getting into the college football slate. What about you, man?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to sit back, relax, get ready for tomorrow, the one day that I actually don't appear on camera. We're going to have a little soccer match in the morning. Got to take the kid out there and relax and enjoy that. And then before you know it, it's Sunday madness in football. Just giving some updates before we get out of here tonight, Drew. Old Dominion 14-7 right now in the second quarter over Western Kentucky. Some line movements here. Marshall -2.5 now. So some money pushing back here on the Marshall Thundering Herd as we head toward it. Colorado State still sitting at 9.5, depending where you're shopping at. Air Force at 6.5, 7. So a lot of interesting stuff to look forward to tonight. And that'll about do it here for the closing line presented by SportsbookReview.com. For October 20th, 2017. I was your host tonight, Donnie Rightside. I want to thank my resident Friday guest, Mr. Drew Martin. Follow him on Twitter at Drew Martin Picks here, as well as thanking Devin Brackett for coming on for CG Technologies. Check us out here at SBRodds.com. Also on Twitter, give us a follow there at SBR Sports Picks there. And let us know what you think. Always tweeting out some good information. Feel free to go back and forth with that Twitter account, as well as subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a like. Let us know some feedback from all of us here at SportsbookReview.com. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. Good luck on your wagers, and we hope we helped you beat the closing line tonight, fellas. Take care.